Gen Alpha has been described as digital natives, screenagers, and children of the millennials, with each generation differing from the previous with their relationship with technology, with boomers benefiting from the Industrial Revolution and millennials gaining geographic, temporal, and financial freedoms with the information age. I'd argue that what makes Gen A different from the previous generations is that they are the first to not use technology, but be used by it.
Because no matter what we choose to do for a living, nearly every one of us will eventually have to work with an intelligent machine. It is extremely important to learn what these machines are and what they can do.
The oldest among Gen A were only 10 years old during the stay-at-home crisis, and the impact on their mental health and literacy is only now becoming apparent. For the purposes of this video, however, I'm going to specifically target the most fundamental arc that gives our life meaning, and that is our personality. And now I quoted Michael Berlin's notion of life becoming simpler and truer at the beginning of this video. However, if we are to progress our understanding of mental functionality, we must begin by defining what we mean by underdeveloped personalities. Conventionally, personality types have been categorized by answering an inventory of questions, such as the new FFI, that distills you down to 60 questions to statistically measure your level of openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Personality tests fit neatly with drug trials. As such, the field of psychology is better positioned as a pharmacological study of the mind rather than psychoanalysis as was originally intended. I find this crude conjecture an insult to the organic functions of the human mind. So, in opposition to prevailing views, I will challenge cherished psychological lexicons with achronistic approaches that apply psychoanalysis as an investigative tool.
I don't understand you.
I'm not a psychiatrist, and perhaps I'm being clumsy at all this.
I'll explore 4 key attributes of how technology impacts the mind of Gen A. The ego can be deduced as self-referential fantasies that motivate the subjective importance that we place on ourselves, even if the ego is self-inflating. This is a corollary product of low self-esteem and repressed weakness disguised as strength. The contents of the ego is often experienced as painful or forbidden, and therefore repressed and excluded from consciousness to reduce anxiety, guilt, or conflict. Repression is universal and only differs in intensity between individuals. The emotional charge of repressed material continues to influence behavior in subtle, symbolic, and disguised ways that often evade our awareness. As Gen A develops, so too does the role of the ego to protect itself with evasive defenses and coping tendencies to deal with inevitable disappointment and psychological distress. Children of pre-digital generations would gradually learn to delay immediate gratification in favor of pursuit, hard work, conflict resolution, and build towards long-term fulfillment. The development of delayed gratification is sabotage for Gen A, with dopamine driving a false inflation of a digital ego. The digital ego acts as a second skin, preventing damage to their actual ego, which would fundamentally be the catalyst for psychological growth. The inability to take emotional hits results in Gen A being easily offended and therefore respond poorly to psychological distress, trauma, and confrontation. This underdevelopment in coping mechanisms is largely responsible for cancel culture, censorship, and the inability to contribute to open discourse. To discover hidden meaning, the observer has to surrender themselves to their unconscious activity and catch the drift in their stream of consciousness. This state of evenly suspended observation of raw thought has been replaced by a digital stream of consciousness, a state that I've coined as digital drift. As a child develops, they learn that the state of helplessness is alleviated by their parents, the love giver or protector. This internalized relationship to the love giver is now subjected to availability. This is where a third party gets involved, a digital companion that incurs the same fear of loss or sense of abandonment as the original parents. The early offshoot of personality unfolds with recurrent interaction between self and other. The responsibility of parents is to role model healthy, secure attachment with their children, so when the time arrives for them to step away, the child has developed the courage to eliminate hesitation, face discomfort, and navigate ambivalence. A black box superintelligence now displaces a child's spontaneous thought and free association required to test reality and replaces this with digital drift. Unable to separate self-thought from digital drift, it becomes impossible to escape from an undifferentiated sense of self, and it is the precursor to a hive mind. Digital drift masks unedited self-thought, painful emotions, and socially unacceptable behavior, which then remains submerged in the unconscious, and hidden meaning unknown. The finite availability of the parents is now replaced with the infinite availability of an inanimate stranger, a black box superintelligence that is simultaneously non-threatening and maleficent. There is no sense of commitment or ownership, but rather a cancel anytime subscription to what will never be yours. The desire for the physical has become obsolete. Everything from the music catalog that took you decades to assemble and was symbolic of your character to romance that has now been reduced to subscription and streaming. Gen A will have access to everything, but will own nothing. The non-committal nature is prevalent in substituting relationships for situationships, career hopping, third culture kids, all of which results in the homogenization of a species into an indeterminate state of transracial, transcultural, transnational, transgendered, transhumans. In the old world, everyone watched a show. Gen A lives in a world where everyone is a show with some form of social media presence, a duplication of themselves as a phantom narrative. Human beings who dwell in the digital realm, yet their existence is invisible to the neighborhood of men. The self-entitled approach to freedom and independence means that Gen A is unresponsive to compromise, self-sacrifice, and putting aside their own needs to think of family or serve the greater good. This cohesion is the cornerstone of mutual relationships. Postmodern generations may never know of true love. The magic of love may be thought of as a ghost that everyone talks about but no one has ever seen. True love starts off with intoxication, but then matures into walking hand in hand in old age, held together by shared history and challenges overcome, and the silent knowing of each other's hidden meaning. I want to deviate from the Golden Age syndrome, which is the erroneous notion that a different time period is better than the one that we're living in. All humans are casualties of circumstance regardless of era. What differs is the degree of escapism. The only thing that can silence escapism is the immediacy of this moment. Silence is the container for early stage emotion and is an important part of interpreting thought to clarify, confront, and correct misinterpretation. Silence motivates the healthy development of the self to emerge from a prepared mind. Silence, which is neither goal-directed nor self-critical, is stolen from Gen A at birth. Doom scrolling prevents the release of thought, and the repetition of the background activities of the mind become a burden, and suffering from pain and anxiety begin. In the attention economy, silence is the true commodity. Recognizing the value of silence will permit Gen A to become fully realized. Instinct is the locus of impulses unconstrained by logic, time, or socially acceptable behavior. Unlike native human beings who absolve in a single instinct of what the moment demands, Gen A will be transinstinctual. Their primordial urges, sexual fantasies, and aggressive tendencies will be fully automated by machine. I explored the dangers of replacing instinct with technology in my TEDx talk, which was not only censored, but TED applied heavy warnings against watching this talk. Controlling access to this information goes against academic freedom and impacts the world at large. I would suggest watching this TEDx talk and sharing it as widely as possible for the future of humanity to remain intact.